If you guys haven't heard this yet, Auden Larratt just announced his next match, and it's going to be against James English. Now this did make me pretty happy because this is one of the people I've mentioned wanting to see Auden pull in previous videos. I think this is going to be a super entertaining match as well as a very good test for Auden. Now if you don't know who James is, he is probably somewhere in between a bodybuilder and a powerlifter. Auden was saying that even though James is only around 5'9", they have a similar body weights. So James definitely has a lot more musculature than Auden does. But James is not limited to traditional weightlifting. He has been training arm wrestling for a while now, and although I don't know how seriously he has been taking it, we do have a pretty good amount of practice footage from him. And from what I've seen, people tend to be impressed with him. When other arm wrestlers pull him, it looks like initially they think he's not going to be very strong and just treat him like a bodybuilder that doesn't have good technique. But then they realize that he has some genuine power and is definitely no joke. Now James' more center table-ish pressure does look a bit awkward, at least in these videos, as it tends to with someone who has not arm wrestled a ton. However, what James does have a seemingly good connection to already is his press. And this is very interesting, because when you think about the worst potential style match for Auden, just like with Devin, it's going to be a presser. Auden's ability to take hand control is already super solid. He has a long arm, he has a great setup, and a ton of wrist rise and pronation through back pressure. All of these things combined will make it extremely difficult for anyone to hook Auden or to top roll him. However, I think the biggest question in this match is whether or not James can press with and without his wrist. We have already seen plenty of times that James has a very solid press if he has access to his cupping. But is he just as effective with his wrist totally flopped back, Jerry Cadorette style? And Auden is of course well aware of this and is planning for the possibility that James does have a flop press that is just as good as his normal press. However, I don't think that Auden's bicep will be strong enough to prevent James from pressing through him. If Auden is going to win this match, he will need to block James' flop press from a technical lane rather than a strength-based lane. I think Auden has two primary options here, and ideally he would combine the two simultaneously. Auden's options to block the flop press from James are cupping and shoulder commitment. Now this is assuming that Auden will be able to take James' wrist to begin with, but I will go ahead and say that if Auden can't crack James' wrist, the match is probably all over. So I'll be looking at this match assuming that this will take place. If you've ever tried to flop press without having pronation, you know how terribly awkward it feels. So if Auden's cup is strong enough to crush James' pronation, this will allow him to get over the top of James and make it very difficult for him to press. But even still, if James is strong enough, he may just be able to wedge in there and force his way through. And this is where Auden's shoulder comes into play. If Auden can not only crack James' wrist and crush his pronation, but also commit his own shoulder, this will remove all of James' options to access that press power. He'll be underneath Auden, and even if he still tries to wedge in, he'll just be going directly into Auden's bone line. And James really does seem to be pretty strong, so this may be what Auden needs to do in order to win this one. But let me know what you guys think about this. Who do you think is going to take this match, and what lane do you think will be the win condition for both opponents?